Hi, my name is Leo, and today I want to share the weirdest and scariest experience of my life. I live with my parents in the city. My grad school is just a few minutes walking distance from my apartment. I walk down to school with my friend Nick, who lives close by. We usually take the same route home, through the not-so-busy roads around which only a few people live. One evening, while Nick and me were walking back home from school, a stranger walked up to us and said he needed help. We asked him what was the matter, but turned out he had just come to beg for money. He told us he wanted money to feed his family. We ignored him and walked away in the direction of our homes. The next day, while we were returning home from school via the same route, we saw a crowd gathered on the roadside. It was at the same place where we had met the beggar the previous evening. We went to check what was going on. It so happened that a poor man had committed suicide along with his family. Nobody knew the reason why he had done so. Some said he didn't have money to feed his family, and that made him take such a grave step. It was the same man who came to us asking for money. Nick and me looked at each other, and we were full of guilt. We were sad. However, we walked back home. That night, after dinner, I went to Nick's place. I wasn't feeling too good. It was a weird feeling. I was constantly thinking about that beggar and what had happened. His thoughts were haunting me. So I decided to discuss this with Nick, as that would have made me feel better. When I got there, I told him what I was going through, and I wasn't surprised when he told me that he felt the same way. So we decided to divert our minds and play some video games. We played for hours and realized it was too late. I had to get back home, and Nick had to go to bed. It was 12 midnight when I came home. I got to my room and slid into my bed. After a while, the doorbell rang. I sat up at once. I called out my mother and father. None of them responded. The doorbell rang again. Suddenly, a deep voice came from within me. It can be him, the beggar whom I saw, who wanted help from me. As I started walking down the stairs, the doorbell rang the third time. I peeped through the window to see who it was. It was the beggar who died that day. I was taken aback, shocked. I was very frightened to open the door. I stood there thinking what to do. After a few minutes, when I couldn't hear a sound, I peeped through the window again. This time I saw the beggar with the family. I was even more scared. They were dead. How could they be at my doorstep? I wondered. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. I gathered the courage and walked up to open the door. As I opened the door, there was no one, but only a letter on the doormat. I picked the letter, and as I was opening it, the phone rang. I shut the door, and on my way towards the phone, I again saw the beggar with his family staring at me through the window. He had a paper in his hand which read, "Help." I ran away from there and picked the phone. A man answered from the other end. "Help him, and you would be safe, or else." And the phone hung up. I thought if this was a prank by a friend, and if I was thinking too much about the beggar. But I was pretty terrified about what was going on. I opened the letter, which I picked from the doormat. It had an address printed on it. 356A Beggar Street, North End, Mexico. I thought to myself, what if he was not really dead and he had come to ask for help again? So I took some money from my wallet and was going to give it to the beggar. I walked to the window, but there was no one. Now I was curious to know what was happening, even though I was scared. So I took out my bike to get to the address on the letter. I checked the time in my watch. It was 2 o'clock in the night. I thought of calling Nick, but then changed my mind, as I didn't want to call him this late. The weather was cool and pleasant. As I reached the address, I found that the house was small. It looked mysterious and spooky from the outside. I knocked at the door. No one answered. I pushed the door a little and realized it was open. As I moved inside to check if anyone was there, the lights were switched on at once and all sung, "Happy Birthday!" All my family members and friends gave me a big surprise. Nick was also there. I was amazed. At once, I felt a sigh of relief that the spooky-looking house was my birthday surprise place. I was so terrified after all that had happened that I had totally forgotten it was my birthday. But now I was in a comfort zone. After the cake cutting, while we were enjoying the delicious snacks, I asked my friends, why did they call and scare off me? They laughed at me and said, they never called. They just kept a letter with the address on the doormat, rang the doorbell 3 times and left. This kind of left me petrified. I went into a deep thought as to was it really the beggar and his family, or was it my illusion? Who knocked on the door? And who was the person who called me and asked me to help them and then hung up? I took Nick to a corner and told him all that had happened, but he had no clue either. Though I was happy about my family and friends giving me such a nice birthday surprise, this scary incident had left me with unanswered questions. The next day, I went to the place where the beggar lived, but there was nobody there. Just an old, half-broken hut with old, wrecked furniture. I tried tracking the phone call I received that night, but there were no records. And to this day, I've not been able to figure out how it all happened and who called. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more videos.